My dear friends, take a moment, close your eyes if you wish, and think of the biggest problem in your life right now. Maybe it's a financial struggle. Maybe it's a health issue. Maybe it's a relationship challenge. Or maybe it's simply that little voice inside your head that doesn't stop worrying. Whatever it is, I want you to remember one simple truth. It will not last forever. Nothing does. The joy doesn't stay forever. The pain doesn't stay forever. The sunshine doesn't stay forever. And even the storms don't. Life is a continuous flow of seasons. Winter never stays. Summer never stays. So why stress when life itself is constantly moving? The secret to peace is hidden in these words. Don't stress. Everything is temporary. Granos. My friends, life is never a straight line. It is not always sunny. It is not always stormy. It is not always easy. And it is not always difficult. Life is exactly like the seasons. Think of winter. It is cold, harsh, sometimes unbearable. The trees look lifeless. The flowers disappear. The sky feels grey. And many people say, "This is it. This is how it will always be." But nature smiles and says, "Just wait, spring is on its way." And soon, without our effort, flowers bloom again, birds return, and the same lifeless tree is full of green leaves. Now look at our own lives. We all go through winters, times of difficulty, pain and darkness. Maybe we lose someone we love. Maybe we fail in our career. Maybe our relationships break. In those winters, we often think this is permanent. My life will always remain like this. But just as winter makes way for spring, no difficult phase in life stays forever. And let us not forget the opposite is also true. Summer comes bright, joyful, full of light. Everything looks perfect. But does summer stay forever? No, even the good times pass. Why? Because life keeps moving in cycles. Nothing is fixed. When we understand this, two powerful changes happen in our life first. When pain comes, we stop panicking. We tell ourselves this is only a season. Just as the trees are bare in winter, my heart feels bare right now. But spring will come. This will pass. Suddenly, we feel hope. Second, when joy comes, we stop taking it for granted. We enjoy it deeply with gratitude because we know it's a season that won't last forever. Instead of clinging to it or fearing its end, we cherish it while it is here. Let me give you a small story. Once a king asked his wise minister, "Give me one line of wisdom that will keep me balanced in both success and failure." The minister wrote something on a piece of paper and gave it to the king. The king opened it and read, "This too shall pass." In failure, remembering it will pass gives us strength. In success, remembering it will pass keeps us humble. My dear friends, your winters won't stay forever. Neither will your summers. Life is a continuous flow, not a fixed point. The art of living peacefully is to accept every season with faith and patience. Because at the end of the day, life is just like the seasons, ever changing, ever moving, never permanent. My friends, one of the most comforting truths of life is this: pain is temporary, but the growth it gives us is permanent. When we are going through suffering, when we are facing disappointment, when we are battling heartbreak or loss, our mind convinces us that this pain will stay forever. It whispers, "You will always feel like this. You will never recover." And in that moment, the pain feels heavier than it truly is. But if we look back at our own lives, isn't it true that every wound, every failure, every heartbreak has eventually healed? Maybe it left a scar, but scars are not signs of weakness. They are proof of survival. Think about a time when you failed at something important. Maybe an exam, a business venture, or a relationship. At that moment, the pain was unbearable. You thought, "I can't handle this. My life is finished." But months or years later, when you look back, you realize you didn't stay broken. You adapted, you grew stronger. You discovered new opportunities you wouldn't have seen otherwise. The pain was temporary, but the strength and wisdom it gave you, that stayed, that became part of who you are. Let me share a story. A young man once asked his teacher, Why is life so unfair? Why do I have to suffer so much? The teacher smiled and gave him a pot of water with a potato, an egg, and coffee beans. He boiled them all in the same pot of hot water. After some time, he showed them to the student. The potato, once hard, had become soft. The egg, once fragile, had become strong inside, and the coffee beans had transformed the water itself into something fragrant and new. The teacher said, "My child, pain is like boiling water. It will affect everyone. But how it changes you depends on what you are made of. Some become weak like the potato. Some become hardened like the egg. But the wise transform their environment like the coffee beans. Pain does not come to destroy you. It comes to shape you. Without challenges, there is no growth. Without storms, roots do not deepen. Without pressure, coal does not turn into diamond. Every difficulty you face today is secretly preparing you for the strength you will need tomorrow. So the next time you are in pain, remind yourself it is only for a while. This heaviness will not stay forever. But what will stay forever is the resilience you develop, the lessons you learn, the maturity you gain, and the wisdom you carry forward. And one day you will look back at that painful chapter and say, "That was hard, but it made me who I am today." A pain is temporary, growth is permanent. And once you truly embrace this truth, even suffering becomes sacred because you realize it is a doorway to a stronger, wiser, and more compassionate version of yourself. My dear friends, we often say we want happiness. And when it comes into our lives, we hold it tightly as if it will last forever. But life has its own rhythm. And just as pain is temporary, joy is also temporary. And this is not a sad truth. It is a beautiful reminder. Why? Because when we realize that joy doesn't last forever, we learn the art of gratitude. We learn the art of truly savoring the present moment. Think about the sunrise. Every morning it paints the sky with golden colors, but it doesn't stay. Slowly it fades into the brightness of day. Or think about a rainbow. It comes after the rain. It makes the sky magical, but in a few minutes it disappears. Does the rainbow's short life make it less beautiful? Or does it make it even more precious, because we know it won't last long? The same is true for happiness in our lives. Too often when joy comes, we take it for granted. We don't realize its value because we assume it will always be there. A loving family, good health, financial comfort, a friend who cares, even the small laughter at the dinner table. These are sources of joy. But the truth is, none of these are guaranteed to stay forever. The day we forget this truth, we fall into entitlement. We stop appreciating what we have. But the day we remember that joy is temporary, our heart automatically becomes grateful. Let me share a small story. A king once had a wise advisor who always spoke about gratitude. One day the king asked, "Why do you always tell me to be grateful? I have everything already." The advisor smiled and said, "Come with me." He took the king to a field where beautiful flowers were blooming. He told the king, "Close your eyes and enjoy their fragrance." The king did so, but when he opened his eyes again, a gust of wind had blown many petals away. The advisor said, "Your joy is like these flowers. It is beautiful but delicate. If you don't value it while it's there, when it's gone, you will only have regret. Gratitude is the act of enjoying the fragrance of your flowers before the wind takes them away." My friends, joy is not meant to be held forever. It is meant to be experienced deeply when it is here. When you laugh with your child, don't just laugh, be grateful. When you eat a simple meal, don't just eat. Thank the universe for providing. When you share time with someone you love, don't just spend the moment. Cherish it as if it might not return. Because one day you will realize that the ordinary days you rushed through were actually the happiest days of your life. So the temporary nature of joy is not a reason to fear. It is a reason to celebrate. It is a reminder to live fully, to love deeply, to say thank you more often. Because gratitude transforms fleeting joy into lasting richness. And when we live with gratitude, even a small moment becomes a treasure. Even a short joy becomes eternal in our hearts. Everything passes, pain passes, joy passes. But gratitude turns every passing moment into something meaningful. And that is how you truly live. My friends, one of the biggest mistakes we make when life throws a challenge at us is that we panic. We exaggerate the size of our problem in our own minds, and suddenly it feels 10 times heavier than it actually is. Stress multiplies the weight of any difficulty. A small crack looks like an earthquake. A passing storm looks like the end of the world, and in that panic we lose clarity. We lose peace. And most importantly, we lose faith. But what if we could remind ourselves in those moments that no problem is permanent? That even the toughest storm eventually moves on. Imagine the freedom that comes from knowing that what feels unbearable today is not your forever reality. It is just a passing phase. Let me share a story. A wise teacher once asked his students to hold a glass of water in their hand. He said, "How heavy is this glass?" The students guessed 100 g, 200 g, maybe 300. The teacher smiled and said, "The absolute weight does not matter. It depends on how long you hold it. Hold it for a minute. No problem. Hold it for an hour. Your arm will ache. Hold it for a day. You will feel paralyzed. The weight of the glass has not changed. But the longer you hold it, the heavier it feels." Problems are like this glass. If you panic and keep holding on to them without rest, they feel unbearable. But if you put them down for a while, if you remind yourself they are temporary, you will find the strength to carry on. Panic makes problems permanent in our imagination, but calmness makes them manageable. Think about it. When a child falls and scrapes his knee, he cries as if the world has ended. But within minutes, the wound begins to heal and the child is running again. The pain was never permanent, but the panic made it feel endless. As adults, we do the same. We cry internally, "Why me? Why this? Why now?" And that panic blinds us from seeing the truth that healing is already on its way. Life is like driving through a storm. If you stop the car in the middle of the storm, you'll stay stuck in the rain. But if you keep moving slowly and steadily, you'll eventually pass through to clearer skies. Problems are the same. You cannot escape them by panicking, but you can outlast them by staying calm and patient. Sometimes panic comes because we think we must solve everything instantly. But not all problems require immediate answers. Some require time. Just as you cannot force a seed to become a tree overnight, you cannot force every difficulty to resolve right away. Patience is part of the solution. So my friends, the next time life throws a storm your way, don't panic. Take a deep breath and remind yourself this is temporary. This too shall pass. That one sentence has the power to reduce your stress instantly. Because panic chains you to the problem, but peace gives you the wings to rise above it. Remember, don't panic in problems. Problems are visitors, not permanent residents. They will knock, they will stay for a while, and they will leave. But how you welcome them, whether with stress or with strength, that is your choice. My friends, if there is one truth about life, that we must never forget it, is this: life never stops. The river of life keeps flowing whether we are ready or not. Sometimes we stand on the banks wishing the water would pause so we can rest, but it doesn't. Sometimes we wish the current would carry us faster to our dreams, but it moves at its own pace. And sometimes obstacles, big rocks, fallen trees block the way. Yet does the river stop? Never. It simply finds a new path carving its way forward. Our lives are exactly like that river. No matter what happens, time keeps flowing. Happiness doesn't freeze. Sadness doesn't freeze. The good days pass and so do the bad. Yet in the middle of this flow, we humans often resist. We try to hold on to a past joy, or we fight against a present challenge, and in doing so we create our own suffering. Let me tell you a story. Once a man was crossing a river, and he was holding on to a log very tightly because he was afraid of drowning. The log kept him afloat, but when the river reached shallow water, that same log began to drag him down. The people on the shore shouted, "Let go, let go." But he was so attached, he couldn't release it. Finally, exhausted, he realized that what once saved him was now holding him back. He let go, and immediately he stood safely on his own 2 feet. In life too, there are things we cling to. Our past successes, our old relationships, our mistakes, our regrets. We hold on to them as if they define us. But the river of life is moving forward. If we don't let go of yesterday's log, we can't move into tomorrow's opportunities. And what about obstacles? Have you ever seen a rock in the middle of a river? The river does not complain. Why is this rock in my way? It simply flows around it. Sometimes it even carves through it slowly, patiently, drop by drop. The obstacle does not stop the river. The river reshapes the obstacle. Similarly, our problems, our delays, our hardships, they are not the end of our journey. We can flow around them or through them with patience and persistence. The beautiful thing is the river never flows backward, and neither does time. We may wish to go back to our childhood or return to a moment of joy or undo a mistake, but life does not flow in reverse. And that is a gift. It means we are always being carried forward, always being invited to grow, to evolve, to discover new landscapes ahead. So, my dear friends, when life feels heavy, remind yourself you are the river. Keep flowing. Don't resist the past. Don't panic about the obstacles. And don't cling to things that are no longer serving you. Trust the current. It knows where it is taking you. Because no matter what, the river of life keeps flowing. And if you learn to flow with it instead of against it, you will find peace, you will find strength, and you will find beauty in the journey itself. My friends, perspective is everything. A problem is never just about what it is. It is about how we choose to see it. The very same situation can look unbearable to one person and manageable to another. Why? Not because the reality has changed, but because the perspective has changed. Life is not only about what happens to us. It is about the meaning we give to what happens. Think about this. 2 people get stuck in heavy traffic on the way to work. One starts banging the steering wheel, honking, cursing, stressing. The other takes a deep breath, plays some soothing music, and says, "Maybe this delay is saving me from something worse ahead." Both are in the same traffic, but one is trapped in stress while the other has found peace. The road is the same, the time is the same, but the perspective is different. There's a famous story of 2 shoe salesmen who traveled to a distant land where no one wore shoes. One salesman panicked and sent a message back to his company. "Terrible news. No one here wears shoes. No market for us." The other salesman, looking at the same people, sent a different message. "Amazing news. No one here wears shoes. Unlimited opportunity. Same situation. One saw a dead end. The other saw possibility." That's the power of perspective. Even in our personal lives, perspective is what gives us strength. When we believe our problems are permanent, they feel like mountains crushing us. But when we remind ourselves they are temporary, suddenly we can breathe again. We realize it's not a mountain blocking us forever. It's just a cloud passing by. Think of a child learning to walk. Every time the child falls, he could think, "This is failure. I should give up." But children don't see it that way. They see falling as part of learning. They don't label it as permanent failure. That's why eventually they walk. What would happen if adults borrowed the same perspective? If instead of saying, "I failed, I'm finished," we said, "I failed, I learned, I will try again." Sometimes perspective changes with time. When you are in pain, it feels like a curse. Years later, when you look back, you realize it was a blessing. The job you lost made you discover your real passion. The relationship that broke forced you to grow. The failure that hurt your ego taught you humility. With time, pain transforms into wisdom, but only if you allow perspective to shift. So how do we change perspective in the moment? By asking better questions. Instead of why me, ask what can I learn? Instead of this is the end, ask what new beginning is hidden here. Instead of I can't handle this, ask what strength can I develop through this? The questions we ask shape the answers we find. My friends, the truth is perspective doesn't remove problems, but it changes the way we experience them. A glass of water can drown you if you see it as a flood, or it can quench your thirst if you see it as refreshment. The situation is the same, but your perspective decides whether you suffer or grow. So the next time you face a challenge, pause and remind yourself. This is not permanent. It is not the end. It is simply a bend in the road. Shift your perspective and you will shift your entire experience of life, because the problem is not the real prison. Your perspective is. And the moment you change it, you set yourself free. My friends, one of the greatest sources of suffering in life is not the problem itself, but the way our mind keeps repeating the problem again and again. Overthinking is like sitting in a rocking chair. It gives you something to do, but it doesn't take you anywhere. You go back and forth, but you remain stuck in the same place. And in this cycle, the stress doesn't come from reality. It comes from the endless noise inside our own heads. Imagine a small cut on your hand. If you leave it alone, it will heal in a few days. But if you keep touching it, scratching it, reopening it, the wound takes longer to recover and hurts more than it should. The same is true for problems. Life gives us small wounds, but overthinking is what keeps scratching them, making them bigger than they are. Let me share a story. A monk once told his students to carry a glass of water across a courtyard. As they walked, some focused only on the water, terrified that it would spill. They walked stiffly, stressed, and some did spill. Others carried it calmly step by step without fear, and they reached without much trouble. The monk said, "Life's challenges are like this glass of water. If you obsess about them too much, your mind becomes so anxious that you create more mistakes than solutions. But if you walk calmly, focusing on the present moment, you'll get through." Overthinking creates storms that don't exist. We lie awake at night imagining worst-case scenarios. What if this happens? What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? 90% of what we worry about never even happens, yet we waste our energy suffering twice. Once in imagination and once in reality. Detachment from overthinking doesn't mean ignoring problems. It means seeing them clearly, addressing what we can, and letting go of what we can't. It means separating reality from imagination. There is a beautiful saying, if the problem can be solved, why worry? If the problem cannot be solved, what's the use of worrying? Let's think of life like a river again. When we cling to every thought, every what if, it's like trying to hold on to every leaf floating on the water. Impossible. The river will keep bringing more. The only way to find peace is to watch the leaves float by without grabbing them. That is detachment. My friends, overthinking is like carrying the same burden again and again in your mind, even when you've already put it down. Detachment is not carelessness. It is clarity. It is saying, I will do what I can, but I will not torture myself with what is not in my hands. The next time your mind is racing, pause and remind yourself, this thought is just a cloud, not the sky. I don't have to chase it. When you learn to detach from the endless cycle of thoughts, you will realize something profound. The problem was never as big as your thinking made it. Peace was always within you. It was only hidden beneath the noise. So don't let your mind be a prison. Step out of the loop of overthinking. Trust that not every thought deserves your attention, because the mind may create storms, but your heart can always find calm waters if you allow it to detach. My friends, patience is one of the most underrated virtues in life. We live in a world that celebrates speed. Fast internet, fast food, fast results. We are told that quicker is always better. But life doesn't work that way. Some of the most beautiful things in life, growth, healing, love, wisdom, cannot be rushed. They unfold in their own time. And if we try to force them, we only end up more frustrated, more stressed, more broken inside. Patience is not about doing nothing. Patience is about doing what you can and then trusting the process, trusting time, trusting life itself to bring the result when the season is right. Just as you cannot pull the petals of a flower to make it bloom faster, you cannot pull the strings of life to make everything happen instantly. Let me share a story. A farmer planted seeds in his field. Every morning, he went out and checked the soil. After a week, nothing came up. Out of frustration, he started digging to see if the seeds were growing. And of course, every time he dug, he disturbed the process. Weeks later, when he should have seen green shoots, he saw nothing at all. His impatience killed the crop. Another farmer, however, planted the same seeds and watered them daily. He didn't dig, he trusted, and slowly in time, the shoots broke through the soil. The difference was not in the seeds, it was in the patience. In life too, many of us are like the first farmer. We pray, we work, we hope, and then we get restless. We want results today, now, immediately. And when they don't come, we panic. We stress, we doubt ourselves. But patience teaches us a deeper truth. Delay is not denial. Just because it is not happening right now does not mean it will never happen. Some blessings take time to ripen. Some lessons take time to reveal their meaning. Think about a caterpillar. It enters a cocoon and goes through a painful transformation. If you try to help it by breaking the cocoon too early, it will never develop the strength in its wings to fly. The struggle inside the cocoon is what gives it power. Similarly, the struggles of life are not punishment. They are preparation. They are shaping us for what lies ahead. And only patience allows that transformation to complete. Patience is also powerful because it keeps us calm in uncertainty. When we lack patience, every delay feels like a disaster. But when we practice patience, we see delays as part of the design. Imagine waiting at a traffic signal. If you keep honking, shouting, and stressing, the light will not turn green any faster, but you will lose your peace. If you simply wait, the light changes when it is meant to, and you continue your journey calmly. My dear friends, remember this: time is not your enemy. Time is your ally. It is quietly working for you even when you can't see it. The seed is sprouting underground. The cocoon is transforming quietly. The river is carving its path slowly. Just because you don't see progress doesn't mean progress isn't happening. So when you face challenges that feel endless, whisper to yourself, "This too shall pass. I will wait. I will trust. I will endure." Patience doesn't mean you stop moving forward. It means you move with faith rather than fear. And in that faith, you will discover strength you never knew you had. The truth is, impatience makes you suffer twice. Once because the result hasn't come yet, and once because you torment yourself in waiting. But patience makes you suffer less. It carries you peacefully until the result arrives. So embrace patience, because patience is not weakness. Patience is strength under control. It is the quiet confidence that the universe has its own timing. And when the moment is right, everything will fall into place. My friends, if there is one truth that life teaches us again and again, it is this: everything in this world is temporary. Wealth comes and goes. Health rises and falls. Relationships change. Circumstances shift. Success does not last forever, and neither does failure. And if we tie our peace of mind to these temporary things, we will always live in anxiety. Because when they are there, we fear losing them. And when they are gone, we suffer in their absence. That is why wise people have always taught, anchor yourself in something eternal. Anchor yourself spiritually. Imagine a boat floating in the middle of the ocean. If it is not anchored, The waves toss it around, one strong current, and it drifts far from where it belongs. Our life is that boat, and the waves are the ups and downs of the world. Money, fame, relationships, jobs, possessions, they are all waves. If we don't have an anchor, we will always be restless, drifting at the mercy of circumstances. But when a boat drops anchor, no matter how strong the waves, it stays steady. Let me share a story. A young man once came to his spiritual teacher deeply upset. He said, "Everything in my life is falling apart. My business is failing. My relationships are breaking, and I feel lost." The teacher calmly handed him a small mirror and said, "Look into it. What do you see?" The young man said, "I see myself." Then the teacher sprinkled a few drops of water on the mirror. The image became blurry. The teacher asked again, "What do you see?" The man replied, "I see nothing clearly." The teacher then wiped the mirror clean and said, "This is your life. When you depend only on external things, your reflection is disturbed by every little drop, every little change. But when you anchor yourself in something deeper, something spiritual, you see clearly no matter what touches the surface." Spiritual anchoring does not mean you renounce the world. It means you don't let the temporary control your permanent peace. It means you root yourself in values like love, kindness, humility, service, and faith. Things that no storm can take away from you. Look at nature. The tallest trees survive storms not because they are unshakable above the ground, but because their roots go deep into the earth. Your spiritual practices, whether it's prayer, meditation, reflection, or service, are your roots. When life's winds blow, those roots keep you grounded. Without them, even the smallest storm can uproot you. Sometimes people say, "But what is the use of spirituality when I have real problems? Bills to pay, health to manage, people to take care of." My friends, spirituality doesn't remove responsibilities. It gives you strength to carry them without breaking down. It doesn't eliminate pain, but it gives you the perspective to endure it. It doesn't promise you a life without storms, but it makes you the kind of sailor who can navigate through storms with calmness. Think of a candle in a dark room. The darkness outside may be vast, but the candle does not panic. It shines steadily. Spiritual anchoring is like that candle. It keeps your inner light burning even when everything around you feels dark. So, my dear friends, anchor yourself spiritually, because if you don't, you will always drift with every change, every loss, every uncertainty. But when you do, you discover a peace that is not dependent on circumstances. You discover a joy that is not shaken by loss. You discover a strength that comes from within, not from outside. The world is temporary, but your spirit, your soul, your inner truth that is eternal. And when you anchor yourself there, you stop stressing about every wave, every storm, every change. You start living with stability, with balance, with deep inner peace. My dear friends, life is a journey of seasons. Sometimes we walk in sunshine. Sometimes we walk in storms. Sometimes we taste the sweetness of joy. Sometimes we drink the bitterness of pain. But whatever we face, one truth always remains. It is temporary. The winters of life do not last forever, and neither do the summers. The river keeps flowing, the clouds keep moving, and time keeps healing. If everything is temporary, then why waste our precious life in endless worry, in stress, in panic? Instead, let us live with patience when problems come. Let us live with gratitude when happiness comes. Let us change our perspective, detach from overthinking and anchor ourselves in values that no storm can shake. And above all, let us smile even through the storms because we know they will pass. So the next time you feel overwhelmed, whisper to yourself, "Don't stress. Everything is temporary." That sentence alone can give you courage, can give you peace, can give you hope. Life is too short to live in fear. It is too precious to waste in stress. So breathe deeply, trust the journey, and carry this wisdom in your heart. Nothing is permanent. Every storm ends, every night gives way to morn, and every season eventually changes. And when you live with that awareness, my friends, you don't just survive life, you celebrate it. Yes.